things underway, I've selected a passage from the AA literature, AA Big Book. It's going to be from page 67, the last paragraph on page 67 through the last paragraph on page 68. And it starts out, notice that the word fear. All right. Hope you're with us, Paul. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and his wife. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there's a better way. We think so. We are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than finite selves. We are in the world to play the role he assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely on him does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality is the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. All right, Paul, you still with us? Oh, no.
I'm muted.
Let's see here.
I think you have to enable audio, Paul. If you tap on the screen and then it should pop up.
Yeah. Just I've got him on my phone here, so just talk away, Paul.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so
This will pick him up.
I figured, what do we just read? The fear. 60,
Yes.
68, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it, really. It's just trying to get down to the nature of the wrong and the causes and conditions. Obviously, most people feel fear is a very huge cause in their life. It creates a lot of effects. And here, the diagnosis directs us to look at fear. And he asks us that simple question, why do we have it? And then it says, isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? So basically, that's the diagnosis. The diagnosis turns away from fear and looks at the cause of the fear, which is self-reliance. Yeah. Now, therefore, it would be probably pretty good to have somewhat of an understanding of what self-reliance is. Reliance is to depend on, yeah, and self is that which has defeated us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can. But
Can you guys hear him?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, great. So the whole thing is reliance is depending on it, and then self is what has defeated us. So basically, the reason why there's so much fear is we're relying or depending on that which has defeated us. So we have enough sense in our bones about what happens when we follow directions from the head. And to me, that's the fear. Now, what dances on that fear and wakes it up is anxiety, mental anxiety. Yeah, and that can be rooted into those two possible drives, which is I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I have or not get what I want. Yeah. So basically, it's self-reliance is the cause of the fear. The fear is two-pronged. It's basically either I'm afraid of losing what I have or not getting what I want. Yes. And the dilemma is we're reliance. We're depending on that which has defeated us. Yeah. There you go. That's the diagnosis. So we're going to look at fear in our lives by doing the inventory. And then you see most fear is really mental anxiety. But the fear that allows all that activity called mental anxiety is the fear of not getting what we want and losing what we have. Yeah, that's the diagnosis of recovery. So we do the fear inventory not to really get to the fear, but to get to the self-reliance. Yeah. Are we or are we not depending on what has defeated us? Yeah. What are we depending on it not to defeat us anymore? Does it work? No. Yeah. How does it look when we're relying on it? We're believing the thoughts. We're figuring we can think ourselves out of shit and we can think ourselves into stuff. Yeah. Not realizing that the thinking has been infected by alcoholism. So now that which we felt great assurance in, our reason has been warped. Yeah. We're not seeing things clearly. Why? Because we're relying on that. Yeah. If we perhaps there's a better way, which is trusting the infinite. But first you have to see the trusting the finite and start telling the truth about it. Because if you don't, your attempt to trust the infinite will be reinforcing the trust in the finite. Yeah. You will let that which is playing God tell you how you're doing about playing, being with God or knowing God. Yeah. It's just insane. How do we can change the deck, the seats of the Titanic all you want. You got to see the iceberg and that you're moving towards it. Yeah? Then there would be another reaction that would be appropriate, not changing the seats. Yeah. So what do? We do an inventory on self's manifestations and we keep calling them ours and we have more of self's manifestations, or self's manifestations has more of us. Yeah. It's just insane. Where the point in this process is to outgrow these conditions. How can you outgrow the condition you're taking yourself to be? How? If you're living from the conditions that self has manifested and has produced, and then you want to get out of those conditions as self, that falls into the warning of self can't get out of self. I don't know. Illuminate me if I'm way off, but it's a simple diagnosis. Yeah. But first, you have to see that which is playing God. Yeah. Why does that which is playing God come before the major principle of recovery, which is the third step? Reliance on something greater than yourself. Because if you're relying on something smaller than yourself, your attempt to rely on something greater than yourself is going to severely be diminished, because you'll be reinforcing that which you want to weaken. Yeah, you'll be having more trust in self concerning the trust in the infinite. Isn't that insane? There's something going on. We know that people, unless they may have a trouble with being unconstitutionally honest, yeah, that anyone can get recovered. Yeah. Why isn't that happening more? What's the ingredient? Is there a weakness in the program? I don't think so. The principles are sound. The diagnosis is pretty sound. Maybe the exact nature of the wrong isn't that clear in that first book. Yeah. But it's pretty damn good. Yeah. So what's the ingredient that's screwing it up? Us. Yeah? We're the ones that are screwing it up. You can have a perfect program and put a person in it. It can not produce the effect. Yeah. Yeah. So what needs to be looked at? Us. Yeah. And especially if the us is identified as self, because then we're not going to see clearly self has defeated us. We're going to keep living as if we defeated us. Yeah. Or they defeated us, which is the bondage of self continuing on the program of recovery. And no, you can see, you know, when if that activity is going on and the car is identified as it, you can get supersonic jets at the car wash. It's not going to clean that off. It's going to survive that intense water pressure because the identification is pretty durable. Yeah, it is. It can withstand strenuous activities to get out of it. It does. Yeah, because you're trying to get out of it as it. It defeats us. As long as we're starting from self, it defeats us, trying to get out of self. Yes or no? Yeah. So why not, instead of, you know, going and going, let's look at where we start from. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe start at, hey, perhaps there's the better way. Trusting the infinite rather than finite self. Well, what the hell? What does trusting finite self look like? Why don't you check it out? Well, I would say abject faith in the thoughts that are being presented in one's head, really. Yeah. Because faith is what moves the mountains, as Bill W. said beautifully on page 53, you know. So in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time. I would say now is in all the time. So faith is involved right now, hugely. Yeah, huge. Do we wake up and have a sense of that? No. The faith is just, it's already been put in something, and it's manifesting through that. We don't see the delivery of the faith into that something. We don't usually. That's why we're on a consequential level. We know we're going to get whacked after we get whacked. Yeah. We don't see anything coming. We don't. So, this is the point of these talks in a way. Yeah. The program is sound. It works perfectly. The principles, you can follow them, and they'll lead you through life, through all the aspects of living. After 30-something years, they're pretty sound principles. What's the dilemma? There must be a mistake in the diagnosis. I just feel there's got to be, because I think we're trying to get out of me as me. You know, I had a big talk with this guy at dinner here, and you know, to me it seems simple on page 64. It sounds like self and us are different, but he would not see that. He knows self is us. Yeah, us is the collective selves. Yeah, so us as an individual defeated us as another whatever. I don't see it. I see it as completely separated. Yeah, idea of self has defeated us. Yeah. Now, how does that look? If you hear that from self, it looks completely different than if you hear it from us. Yeah. When us hears it, it sees self may not be us. Yeah. So we finally recognize it as a foreign agent, which it is, and it allows us to entertain the idea and the fact that we can be free from it because it's not us. Seeing the same statement from self leads to trying to be free as it. As that works. Yeah. So this is fundamental. You know, people want to call me and ask me about dating and stuff. I don't care. You know, I don't care. Like people call me up, you know, did you hear that Watson, who and who are divorced? I didn't care if they were married. It's not important to me on this level of message. Yeah? This level of message is fundamental. Yeah? Dating, no dating. What's the underlying situation? Yeah? Is there an actor being identified as something that's just running wild? It's just taken off. Yeah, it's left a huge impression on most of our lives. It has. It's like it brought us into the tattoo parlor, and we got the tattoo it want. You know what I mean? It's just like, and then you just rationalize and make up a story to keep fitting the narrative that I'm this. So it can't hold water after a while. Yeah. I'm this. I'm the one who's crawling around the rug looking for fucking cocaine. Yeah. Paul was sitting on the couch. Paul made a decision to go to the rug. Paul started to see lint as cocaine. Paul didn't do any of that shit. Paul was driven to the rug. Yeah. Paul was driven to that condition. Paul did not volitionally choose to get there. Yes or no? Either you're dancing with the gorilla or you're the one who's leading the dance. It's not. Yes, I would say we were dancing with the gorilla, and we're going to stop when it wanted to stop. Yeah, and it didn't want to stop much. Yeah. So, yeah, this thing is talking about the fear to get a clarity. I think one of the most revelatory sentences, why do you have so much fear today? Isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? There you go. That's the diagnosis of the big book. Yeah. Ask yourself, why are you in so much anxiety today? Yeah. Instead of, itemizing all the anxieties and all the topics, just see the fundamental that keeps you in anxiety all day is reliance on self. We're depending on that which has defeated us. Yeah. What can you expect? Yeah. What can you expect if there's a constant depending on what has defeated us, hoping that it ain't going to defeat us anymore? It's like the lady with the snake who took really nice care of it, and 3 days later, walking around, the snake bites her, and she goes, she's completely surprised based on how she's been treating it. Hey, and the snake looks up at her. Hey, I'm a snake. That's what snakes do. Selves defeat us as alcoholics. Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah. I'm gonna rehabilitate it. Good luck. Yeah. Good luck. Why not see it as something that you're not, and leave the rehabilitation behind, and then you'll recover from it instead of trying to recover as it. You'll recover from it. You will outgrow it instead of hoping it's going to outgrow all this other shit, because it ain't. Yeah, you're going to outgrow it. That's fundamental, isn't it? That's not like talking about, do I want to go on a date to a movie or should I take her to dinner? This is like all specifics. This is fundamental. Yeah. Perhaps the better way is trusting the infinite rather than finite self. Okay. Why do we have so much trouble with that? Because if you try to trust the infinite from finite self, that's trusting finite self about the infinite. Yeah. Simple diagnosis. See if it applies. If it doesn't apply, keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully it will work. But if it does apply, allow it to work. Yeah. Allow it to work. Let the infinite reveal self instead of hoping self will reveal the infinite. Let's just switch it around. Yeah. Didn't you have that? Didn't you grow from the first understanding? Oh, I have a higher power of my own understanding. Quickly, hopefully it ended up to I have a power of its own understanding. Yeah. Why would I want to limit the higher power with my understanding? That's like putting a fucking, baby saddle on an incredible unicorn horse or something. Yes. Let's just freaking, yeah. I have a higher power of its own understanding. So it becomes revelatory. Yes. Because it's like we used to do here in San Francisco. The sponsor, if he thought you were going to stick around, would have you write down what do you want from a year of sobriety. Yeah. And then after the year, you would look back on the paper that you wrote like in the first month. And you could see if it was up to you, your life would be still super small. But AA broke that, and you got a whole lot more than you ever imagined. Yeah. What do you think? That's a one-off, rare phenomenon? That's a principle. A principle revealed. Yeah. If it's up to you, you're gonna live in a very fucking small box. Yeah. If it's up to the infinite, just find out, see what happens. Yeah. You pretty much know what's gonna happen with the self. Yeah. But the infinite, at least there's an aliveness to it, because like I just see it all the time. All the freaking time. It's right in front of us if you have the eyes to see it. Something is doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. How hard is that to understand? You have tons of experiences of it, yeah? I mean, isn't that one of the major learning tools as an action figure is through experience? Have you or have you not had a lot of experiences of something has done for me and others that we couldn't do for ourselves? Yeah, all right. Evidence, collating evidence is over. Now a deep appreciation and gratitude. Yeah, and now you live under that principle. So when my head tells me I'm not going to be able to deal with this, that's my solution. Yeah, that's where I start from. Is the obviousness that I can't deal with. That's how it gets dealt with. Yeah, it's been like that for 30-something years. Yeah. So, yeah, this is all great. I love this fear-asked part because there's some really clear direction there. And I feel the one who's hearing it is the next point to get clear about. Yes? I mean, the directions are super clear. Yeah, but maybe you can hear them with a new ear. Yeah, and maybe something will trigger and you'll get some real lasting relief, which will become the new norm. You know what I mean? Instead of living, even though you're not on the tightrope anxiety, you think you're gonna be. That's just as bad as being on the tightrope anxiety. Yes, to have an assurance that you're okay, because a lot of the shit was based on a belief that you weren't okay. Yeah. Now that's shifted. Now you are okay. Maybe you can be concerned about others. Yeah. I don't, this isn't, we're not trying to change shit. It's just, we're not looking at this as a replacement. We're looking at this as an illuminating factor of the basic diagnosis of what ails us. Yeah. And for one who had the same conditions that ail you, the relief has been profound. And if I follow it back, it leads to this understanding of a difference between us and self very clearly. And us is before self, and self is sort of like an add-on that seemed to grow to the point where we need to outgrow it now. Yeah, we've got to, yeah. And I don't see how we're going to do that as that. I just don't see it. I'm a true believer in the statement, self can't get out of self, completely, 100%. I just don't believe it, that self can get out of self. I just don't, yeah. Maybe you have found a method that you can, hallelujah. Start a Zoom maybe. Yeah, put it out there. Yeah. Because obviously, when something works concerning the mind, it's not an individual thing. It can be presented or it can be applied to many minds, yes? Because the alcoholism doesn't have an infinite amount of traits. It's pretty basic, yeah? Yeah. If you've had it, or if it's had you, you'll be able to recognize if it had me, yes? Because we know, I don't know you or me, but I know that, yeah? And that overrides you and me. So that's what I know. Yeah. So I don't see any one alcoholic with a huge head sticking above every other alcoholic. They're all alcoholics, all addicts. Yeah. And truly, none of them are. They've just been taken over by addiction, really. And how does that addiction take us over? It's the doorway of self. It does. Seriously. Yeah. So, hey, thank you. I'm sorry for the technical stuff, but I had nothing to do with it.
All right, that's fine, Paul. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And you're coming through clear on my end. And today we have Raymond right away with a question. Raymond, do you have a question for Paul today?
Yeah, Raymond. I don't know if we announce ourselves as alcoholic here or not. Yeah, I just, I think the fundamental thing that my mind is coming up with when I'm listening is that, like, in what I'm dealing with in my life is just like the faith in the higher power, because I grew up in alcoholism, in the ism, the family dynamic where it was just chaos. And so I understand the anxiety coming from, like, me trying to control my life, being an alcoholic myself and letting that go. But like, the fundamental thing for me is I have this, it's been programmed into me that life isn't okay, that there's chaos and it's not getting any better, because that was my experience for such a long time. And just, if I could have more faith in a higher power, I could just turn it over easier. And I don't. So I can only slowly let it go, and that's like my fundamental problem is like my faith in that life is going to be okay. And like, why did it start out the way it did? I think that articulates my question.
Well, I feel like, as all of us, you may be in the process of outgrowing it. So this is what happens. When you're outgrowing it, there's still an it that you're grown into, but there's a lesser of the it. So it's a process, yes? So the faith shifts. It's almost as if there's two gravitational pulls. There's the gravitational pull of self, and there's the gravitational pull of the infinite. When one weakens, the other gets stronger. So we're not trying to get stronger than the infinite. We're weakening the finite self, yeah? We're weakening that gravitation by recognizing it's not us, truly. Because no matter how important the sun is, the home planet is always going to override its importance, yeah? We're kind of see that that's not our home planet itself, yeah? So once the program works on us, we outgrow that, we break that gravitational field. We don't break it. The gravitational field weakens, and we get pulled into the other field, which is trusting the infinite, yeah? And you really know the problem from the solution. When there's faith in the infinite, you'll see how much there was faith in the finite. Just will, yeah? When there's a lot of faith in the finite, you won't be seeing it that clearly. You'll be trying to have faith in the infinite, yeah? But to me, it's a weakening of one allows an emphasis of the other, yeah? In other words, I don't think you can have two fields at the same time, so to speak. One needs to be dominant than the other. So right now, when we're starting, because of trauma and whatever, the other's dominant, but we're outgrowing it. Recovery progresses. If you stick with the principles, they're freaking sound. You're going to get sucked out of the ass of self. Yeah. You can thank the divine proctologist, but he may not need his card anymore, because you'll get established out of the ass of self. Divine proctology is necessary and very essential until it ain't. Yeah. Yeah. And that is when you get established in being out of the ass of self. So yeah. So the recognition is sound. There's a lot of faith that you're not going to be taken care of. Yeah. And it's producing effects. The program will affect that which is producing producing effects. Yeah. And the faith, slowly or quickly, will now be found in the infinite, and there'll be a weakening of that bondage of self. It will. Just stay in the program, basically. That's it. You know, stay on the operating table. Don't get up. Don't play doctor. Yeah, yeah. Things go very well. All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep, thank you so much. Okay, next up we have Gary C. Gary C, come on in.
Hey,
Hey,
good morning, everybody. Hi, Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So kind of along the same lines as what you're talking about, I was thinking this morning, it was actually part of a Bible study, but it's appropriate. It's like the question would be, how do I get closer to God? And
No.
yeah, I don't. That was the answer. It's like, it's nothing you do. Everything that you do in an effort to get closer to God really makes it seem farther away. And to see that is the answer. It's like, how do you rest in the, I have a Irish blessing on the wall here, and it says, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. And it's like, how do you be held? Well, it's not by being in motion. It's not by trying harder. It's like you be held by, if anything, knowing that you're being held. And the more you try to do it, the less awareness of that there is. So it was just like a feeling of, notice that in any given situation. It's like, well, how do I be more God in this situation? Well, there's nothing for you to do. It's I don't know. There's no great words for it. It's a knowing, and it's a knowing that there is a higher power, and you're already in those hands. And hallelujah. And if you ever think that there's more for you to do, check that, because you might be off on a wild goose chase. So anyway, I really appreciate you bringing this, because I just don't know where else in my life I would have heard it. And it's really a blessing to my life that you've brought out this sort of hidden in plain sight predicament, and that, I don't know. Anyway, just thank you for that, and that's what I wanted to share
Yes. Great.
about.
Yes. It's tricky, but once you start seeing the subtle, trusting the finite, yeah, more gets revealed. Yeah. I mean, basically, if you believe you're in a set location and you have to be doing a lot to get somewhere else, I would say most cases that's trusting the finite self. Yeah, because my experience of a higher power is it's always available at all times, right where I am, without any requirement necessary, other than the ones I make up. Yeah. So I don't think, I mean, how long would it take to get to everywhere if you're in everywhere? Yeah. Don't you think the everywhere would override the appearance of all these special somewheres? The underlying fact would be everywhere, and then you and I think we're in all these different conditions separate from everywhere. Let's allow everywhere to have an influence or a role in all those specific somewheres or something we obsess over. Yeah, the everywhere is the balm, the BAALM. It's the soothing healing. Yeah, everywhere. The head just wants to constantly proclaim it's a long-lasting, independent, separate thing. So I'm on my own island, and maybe there's a God that I can improve contact with, and it's on its own island.
Mhm.
And the fact that I don't see that to be true. I see we are of that which we're trying to arrive at. Yeah, we are of that. So all the trying to arrive is being used for another purpose we're not aware of, which is the reinforcing, the trusting, the finite.
Yeah.
Because the self tells us we're separate, doesn't it? Did God ever tell you you're separate? Did that unsuspecting inner resource talk about you really fucked up today? You did something, you'll never be forgiven, and this are the penalties of doing that. You're never going to be whole. All this is faith in the finite.
Yes.
Talks as if you're apart from that which is essentially you. It does. And it says it's going to be a rough road for you to finally get back to where you left, but you never left. Yeah. That childlike, that sense of presence when I was a kid, is a sense of presence that's available now. Yeah. Now the story of who's in it and everything has changed, but basically the breathing, the livingness of life hasn't at all. So this is about breaking the addiction to a lot of false evidence, yeah, and constantly living as if they're real, yeah. Just having that fence break down, and you'll see all these dividing modalities, fences and walls and gates. I mean, not literally, but figuratively. They're not cutting. We used to have a little example. So I'm in a room here, and there's walls and shit like that. So let's take the wall down. Yeah. Did you have to call up space and say, I need a piece of space like 8 feet high and 6 feet long to replace the wall that was taking up all this space? No. Yes? The wall was an appearance in space, isn't it?
Yes.
If you knock down the wall, there's not a void there. It's just space. So the wall is an appearance in space. Here I am, and if you weighed space, the wall hasn't added or subtracted any weight to space. Yeah, it's an appearance. Yeah. So these are mental ideas that compartmentalized and formalized and put like staircases and different degrees. And we're running this little mental obstacle course all day, and the agenda who's running the race is for you to lose. That's the whole point. Yeah. It wins by your loss. Yeah. It just don't, yeah. So, yes. Yes, I've got to, obviously, if I have a huge drive to get somewhere, I must think I'm somewhere else. Yeah.
Yes.
Like the question that somewhere else you think you're at. Maybe you're not there. And if you're not there, maybe you already are in LA. Who knows? Yes. That was what I found out. All the places I wanted to arrive at, I had never left. But then I had a vested interest. I didn't want to look that stupid to buy all these maps to LA and all these fucking pictures of LA in my room when the pictures are right outside. So my head didn't want to have a slap of its little spiritual pride, so it keeps trying to get to LA. To verify its instead of just admitting, hey, yeah. Defeated, shit. Yes. So yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
No, Paul, I don't see any other hands up today.
What
But-
time? Like,
It's 11:15 or 11:17.
oh, let's
hand up.
see if
Oh,
wants to share
no.
it.
Oliver.
I got Oliver. Oliver came up with his hand up.
All right.
Oliver, please.
Hello. Thank you, Paul. I would like to briefly, refer on what's been said, more or less. I noticed in my case when unexpectedly a lot of trust in finite seems to manifest is when I get inspired by others, get inspired by really, from the present day point of view, inspirational stuff, including you and what you're saying. Yeah. And I tend to, consciously or less consciously imitate that in a sense of, borrowing phrases or just, mimic stuff, not actually kind of relying because, that's definitely in the realm of selfing. And it kind of just wants to kind of, it depends on the situation, of course. If I want to say or explain something and just borrow phrases and not come up with my own, that's just, that's probably a wish to be or sound like someone you're currently not. That's not honest. Let's put it that way. It's the whole process is not real. Let's put it that way, right? And as on the one hand, I'm very glad that I have this few sources that I get inspired from. On the other hand, it's not good that I well, maybe quoting is not that bad, but kind of really borrowing stuff. And on the other hand, if trusting the finite self would be learning through service, learning to believe in in stuff that are connected to programs of service, and kind of grow my own language in that process, and sort of trusting all the time. And
Oliver, I think Paul wants to come back to you, mate.
Well, first, Oliver, these aren't mine or the other person's words, yeah? So this is like open resource. There's no mine or yours. So
right.
If there's something in you that you don't really know what size it is, and someone shares it as a size 10, you wear that size 10. It's no one's shoe, yeah? Because that will bring out more of what you're sensing. So yeah, it's open resource. So it's not mine and yours or his or theirs, or yeah. And this is freely given, and it's really meant to be freely taken. And yes, the head can do whatever it wants with anything it gets introduced to, but that's not the only thing that happens. Yeah, that's what it says is the only thing that happens. But something, an understanding passed on from some space through some hose to another hose, can increase the understanding. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I do agree. I do have though a problem with faking until you make it, because it seems this is kind of a bad side of that. And
it can be, but don't let the bad side eclipse the other possibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Again, because the premise isn't that you as a separate thing is taking something from them as a separate thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not concerned about theft particularly. It's not that. It's more. I'm aware of the universality of the message. And channeling it. I don't see it individually at all, but I sort of. It's just that problem when I seem to trust some finite values by getting inspired by real stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is good to see, and it's not a solid thing. It changes and it adapts, and the underlying essence is energy. It hasn't finished its form taking. Yeah, its form taking. So yes, the head tries to make something out of it. If you still hang out with it, it's going to break through that mold the head would like to put it in. Yes, because this isn't a live message, really. It's not something. Yeah. So the faith, again, the faith in the infinite, I feel, trumps the faith in the finite. Tell you the truth. So yeah. I loved the, like, when I had senses or feelings, and then like when I had a huge thing going on when I saw Joe and Charlie in my first year of sobriety, these two old guys who ran this big book seminar. It was so, and I don't give a shit what my head tried to do with it, man, because there was so much nutrition getting through that filter couldn't block it all. So it was very, very inspiring. Incredibly, and to see so many people interested in the program at one time in one location had a huge impact. So yeah, the head probably could have walked around and chanted Joe and Charlie shit and did that, but that's those things are gonna show up, and like it says in the idea of the third step, is gonna produce a lot of folly in certain people. Yeah, we're going to think in absurd ways what it means. Yeah, but there's an outgrowing of that. Yeah, you don't want to throw that baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Yeah, so yeah, that's my feeling with it. So yeah, I've made an ass of myself many times, but it's been one persistent drive that has been moved in many years, and yeah. That's I have a sense of, by the feel of the old gravitational, I get the image of that which I'm not, so to speak. And by the effects of the gravitational pull of the infinite, I get an intimacy with that. Yeah. And so, and one gives me the ability to recognize the other more clearly. Yeah. The infinite allows me to see the finite a lot more clearly. The finite tries you to be, it wants you to be blind to the infinite. Yeah. But the infinite gives you great sight of the finite. They're totally different systems, so to speak. Yeah, completely different. They drive differently. Their intention is different. Yeah. And you get used, what it was like driving on the one, and now you're getting to know what it's like to be driven by the other. Yeah. So yeah.
That's great, Paul. Thank you. Thank you, Oliver. Totally relatable. Paul, you up for one more question from Andrew?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Andrew, come on in.
Hero.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul. It's Andrew from Peterborough. How are you doing?
Hey, Andrew, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good enough.
Andrew, I just saw you. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not really a grateful alcoholic. I hate this disease of alcoholism. I don't like it, but I'm glad there's a solution. So I'm grateful there's a solution for it. Being sober, clean for a few 24s now, I still suffer from the isms of alcoholism, and that's the selfing, right? And what we talked about was fear, right? And I just wanted to share a little experience I had working with another alcoholic recently. Our local fellowship shut down the doors again because of this insane world we live in, and they shut down the doors before they even shut down the bars, right? And me and him are pissed off, right? And other alcoholics from alcohol are upset too, right? And so what this fear thing comes from resentment, right? So what we did was like we're both sober, but we did a resentment thing, both of us. And I like when you share about resentments and my resentments, right? And I distinguish between him and I that You know, we both have the same resentment. So how can they be my resentment? You got the same one as I got, and so does this woman over here. We all have the same resentment. So how can they be my resentment when it's a resentment? And that's that us from self thing that I've come to understand through the literature, through you sharing, through listening, and seeing it and realizing it. So we just dealt with the resentment. What's separate from us? The resentment. That's the resentment. And then, you know, what did it affect? Right? You know, okay, the resentment at AA shut down. You know, we're angry. It affected our emotional security, right? Because now we won't be able to get to these meetings, and you know, it has nothing to do with financial or sexual or any of that. It's emotional security, and then we had to look at, you know, based on fear, what, you know, where were we wrong in all of this, right? And found that it's through selfishness, right? We were being selfish, just thinking of ourselves, right? So I just wanted to share that. This just recently happened about 2 weeks ago. So to realize that resentment is separate from self is vital, and I learned that early on, and that ties into this fear thing. False evidence appearing real. And good to see you again, and I'm glad you're here. You've helped me stay sober another day. Thanks.
Hey, thank you very much to see you, man. Very nice. Yeah, I missed Peterborough, so hopefully I'll get back there someday. So thanks, my friend. All right, let's end there now. I threw the
Okay,
end.
Paul. Okay.
Let's end, eh?
Hey,
Hey,
I picked that up in Toronto and Peterborough. Can't get rid of it.
oh, happy days.
All right, Mike. So I can't see everyone. So
Yeah.
Hold on. I don't know.
Got it.
All I see is Kurt and David.
Wow, that's all you need to see.
That's all you need to see.
That's all you
there,
need.
Paul.
Don't
That's
worry
it's
all.
more
about
than,
it.
I hope anyone else would ask
Thanks,
them
Paul.
a question, because when they did, they left this screen and went to them.
Do you want me to, shall we read out who's there, Mike? Do you want to just read out and say hi?
Yeah.
sure. We have Ben C, helped co-host today. Thank you, Ben. We have Jacob, we have Kurt Z and David. We have Malcolm. We have Alex M. We have Andrew G. We have Drew H from Wisconsin. We have Gary C. We have Jess Lockhart. We have Joseph C. We have Kaiser from Minnesota.
Who?
Carl and Kelly. We have Logan. We have Mickey for the matriarch from Madeira. We have Nanette. We have Nina in LA. We have Oliver. We have Owen. We have Paul, Raymond, and Roman. We have Sina. We have Stefan. We have Terry, Walter, and William.
Wow.
Thank you, everybody.
Could you repeat that, Michael? I didn't get that.
Keep coming back.
Kaiser.
Come back.
All right. Hey, thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Good job, Mike.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Sorry for the audio issues, everyone.